It's very obvious. You can't have billions of people on the planet, multiple industrial revolutions without doing something to the environment. No question about that in my position. My issue is always about proportionality, about what Australia could do if we did everything versus a place like China that can do whatever it wants and replace everything we do in just 16 days, and the cost of transition. I repeat, the CSIRO released a report that the cost of changing the entire electricity infrastructure is $1 trillion. All right? That's all I ask, is if you have a suggestion about how else to do it, put numbers on the table, and then if people agree with you, they'll vote for it. But you know and I know that they won't, over and over and over again, not because they're climate deniers, but because there is only so much Australia can do when, I repeat, China keeps doing what it wants for another 9 years. Now, Nicholas, if you're uncomfortable with our coverage here is a far more responsible coverage on Taxpayer TV.
The world's top climate scientists have issued their most urgent warning. It's irrefutable. Humans are causing accelerated warming, which is happening at a speed not seen before.
It's bleak. The UN Secretary-General has dubbed this a code red for humanity. The world's temperature is rising faster than expected.
Now, thankfully, they don't use any electricity over in Taxpayer TV to be able to build those graphics or power their studios. So they're very, very responsible people. But also here's the Deputy Labor leader, otherwise known as a block of wood, trying to do his best to have a go at people like Matt. Have a look.
And it's why it's really important that this government actually resolves its internal issues and starts acting with intent in relation to action on climate change. To have the government party room full of a whole lot of people who are essentially denying the science of climate change in 2021 is genuinely unbelievable.
Matt, want to remind everyone what his attitude was to the coal industry and the people who work in it in Queensland?
Well, I'm not surprised on Richard Marles's view on this report this week, because it is important to remind everybody that the Deputy Leader of the Labor Party a couple of years ago said it would be a good thing if the coal industry was to disappear. If the coal industry was to decline. The coal industry is our second biggest export, employs over 50,000 Australians, employing a record number of people right now. It's going absolutely gangbusters. The coal price is through the roof. People can't get enough of our high-quality coal, and they will continue to demand that for decades and decades to come. But the so-called Deputy Leader of the Labor Party is anti-Labor, he's anti-jobs, he's anti the Australian worker, and that's why he's signing up to this radical agenda. This week, we've seen this report from this so-called IPCC. Unfortunately, this body has denigrated itself, has descended into just public relations. It doesn't actually produce science anymore. It leaked out this report over the weekend, like it drip-fed it, and you saw that report there. It was code red for humanity. Is that science? Was that peer-reviewed, that term? It all is very dramatic and presented in a way to manipulate a media story, not to give people the factual situation on the ground. I think that's very disappointing. There is legitimate debate to have about climate. I do not deny the fact that increased carbon dioxide does warm the atmosphere, but the actual details of that and what we should do in response is unfortunately lost by the absolute panic merchant material that we get from the IPCC these days.
Do you agree, Nicholas, that let's have all the solutions on the table, but put a price tag next to them? Then people can make their decision.
I do, Paul, but I also think that the Morrison government has been inept in the same way as they've failed on vaccine rollout. They are failing to take serious action around climate change. Like, why can't Australia, like the rest of the advanced world, sign on to a net zero emissions target by 2050?
Because it would cost
It's in the same way they can't give us a date on a vaccine rollout. They can't give us a date by a target by 2050. Like the rest of the world is, they're just getting on with it. But we are just stuck.
No, they're not. They're not doing anything.
Transition state in this country.